Some of the best work from the Eagles frontman Glenn Frey, also some of his solo work in heavy rotation on my dad's cassette player when I was a kid. Glenn Frey died at 67 from complications from rheumatoid arthritis. In fact, millions of Americans suffer from the debilitating disease, mostly affecting adults over the age of 40 years old. Yeah,
just so hard to believe he's gone. Newsmax health editor Nick Tate joins us now to talk more about this disease and the role treatment may have played into Frey's death. Nick is also the author of the Baby Boomer Survival Guide, Live, Prosper, and Thrive in Your Retirement. Nick, tell us about the effects of rheumatoid arthritis and how it can spiral to complications with other diseases.
Well, we tend to think of RA as a condition that causes basically joint pain, but in fact, rheumatoid arthritis can cause lung problems. People are much more likely to have lung conditions or infections. It can increase the risk for heart attack and stroke, and it really can have widespread effects on the body itself, well beyond just having pain. Now, we know that Glenn Frey was a long-time sufferer. He had RA for about 15 years, and there is some belief that possibly the drugs that he was taking for RA also caused the pneumonia and the ulcerative colitis that was implicated in his death.
Well, that seems to be what the Eagles manager Irving Azoff thinks. He said that Frey's death can be blamed on the medicines he was taking. He tells The Wrap he died from complications of ulcerative colitis after being treated with drugs for his rheumatoid arthritis, which he had for over 15 years. Is this a widely believed assumption here, Nick?
Yes, the science is pretty good here. It really does show many of the drugs that are given to people with severe cases of RA, what they do is they knock down the inflammation. Arthritis is an autoimmune disease. What happens is the immune system goes haywire, so these drugs knock down the effectiveness of the immune system, and of course that leaves you vulnerable to things like pneumonia. It also has deleterious effects on your body's basic systems. So it's really a matter of balancing both the cure and the disease, so the cure in this case does not become worse than the disease and leave you vulnerable to something that can kill you.
Are there any alternatives to what most people are taking to deal with this?
There are alternatives. I mean, controlling the symptoms through drugs that are not as powerful is one, and there's a great deal of promise in the pipeline. There are new drugs that are being developed that do dial down the immune system without leaving you vulnerable to bacterial infections and viral infections. These biologics are really the next wave. I expect that in the next couple of years we'll see several of them on the market. Just today there was new research announced on one of them called Calgene that they think is helpful, so we'll be looking for those. In the meantime, if you have arthritis, as 1.5 million Americans have RA, you really need to work with your doctor to figure out the best alternative.
Nick, women are actually more prone to this than men. Why is that?
That's right. They think it may be due to hormones. That women's hormones are different than men's, and that may offer a negative effect, which makes them actually more likely, 3 times more likely as the case is, to have RA. So that's a consideration as well, something to consider.
Well, you know, look at this Glenn Frey, his musical career, and also so young. You know, is this common where he was 67 years old?
Right.
You know, if you've been dealing with something like this for 15 years, you know, we talked about that window affects most adults over the age of 40, but only 27 years there. Very young for Glenn Frey to die.
Absolutely true. I mean, arthritis is really a condition that does tend to strike older people more, but increasingly we're seeing it in younger folks, and we don't really entirely know why. Glenn Frey, unfortunately, is a case of that happening with a younger person.
So if someone is diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, what would you advise them, he or she, to say to their doctor?
Well, early diagnosis and early treatment is really the best solution. You need to get to a doctor if you're having pain that is more than just run-of-the-mill pain from, you know, weekend warrior activities, to see if it's arthritis, and if it is, try to control the symptoms as simply as possible. I mean, there are some science to suggest that a healthy diet, exercise actually can be really helpful, even if it's tough for folks who have pain. Exercising is a good way to strengthen the muscles around the joints that help with pain. There are some alternatives, some supplements that do seem to work. Chondroitin is one of them. Glucosamine is another one. And what you really need is to work with a doctor who can be the quarterback of your care and say, try these alternatives that are less toxic before we move to more aggressive treatments. But pay attention to that pain. It's a symptom that something is wrong.
Yeah. Great advice. Nick Tate, thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you.
My pleasure.
Also remember to pick up a copy of Nick's book, A Baby Boomer Survival Guide. You can get on Amazon right now as we speak.
Last night was the final Democratic debate before the Iowa caucuses, featuring Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and Fitz from Scandal, I think?
Well, the late nighters taking aim at the Democratic debate. They were back from their weekend. We'll bring you the highlights of that coming up when we return. We want to hear from you. What do you think about Sarah Palin and her possible endorsement of Donald Trump tonight? Twitter is abuzz. What do you have to say? You can reach out to us. Find us on newsmax.com/comments or at Newsmax Now, also on Facebook as well.